Well, welcome to this week's Borders Rugby In Focus, and this week we come to Gala YM and the clubhouse here with the Vice President Jamie Dewar and also Rhuary Horsburgh, who's the captain of Gala YM for this season, and also, of course, as usual, we have Dale Clancy as well. Well, let's go straight in with the rugby first of all. A mixed start to the season, Rhuary. You had a really good win against Liberton, and then last week it wasn't quite as good, let's put it like that.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate on Saturday just past. Really unlucky with the injuries that we had, and that's pretty much what happened to the game. Hopefully we can move forward and the boys get better and that doesn't happen to us again in the season, because it was looking really good in the first half of the game and just fell away.
You had quite a few injuries, in fact, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a couple of head knocks. One of the guys unfortunately broke his leg. A few other kind of minor knocks, but resulted in us going players down in the game. And then Lismore kind of ran away with the game in the end with us players down.
Now, 7 days before that, it was a very different picture against Liberton, 40 points to nothing. Great start to the season.
Absolutely, the boys were absolutely buzzing after that first game. Thought the season could definitely be ours if we kept that going. Just last week was a hiccup in the road, and hopefully we can get back to that winning streak we had against Liberton.
So how big a squad have you got at Gala YM?
So in total we've got about 30 boys, fluctuating. Not everybody can make all the training sessions, games obviously with work, but we've got quite a good pool of players that are regularly playing and down at training as well. And
you're captain as well this year?
Yes, I am.
Yes. How did that happen? Was that a decision made by the club itself, by the players, or what?
It was a decision, kind of committee and players, I believe. It was made just before COVID struck, so my first official season was, I can say, was undefeated in YM. So
always look on the bright side.
Always on the bright side. So yeah, that's me starting this year now.
Now, Jamie, it's a very independent club here at YM. You've got your own place here. How difficult is it to get everything organised, though, for Saturdays?
We've got a very, very good committee. We've got a lot of guys who are very generous with their time, and it makes life a lot easier. There's guys that are in here on the Friday night preparing everything for the Saturday, and on the game day, there's everybody, all hands to the pump, and it works really well.
And you like the independence?
Yeah, that's the important thing, is that we've got that autonomous approach. We can do almost as we see fit. We're much more flexible. We stand alone from any parent club or anything like that, so it allows us to find our own furrow.
And how did you get involved with YM yourself? Because you've been involved with the Triangle as well, the Red Triangle.
Yeah, came away from coaching, had a couple of years out, and I was in gym one night, and Alan Johnson from Gala, who was coaching YM at the time, they must have been desperately short of players, and I got summoned for the following day for a one-day appearance, and I've been here ever since. And
have you studied the history yet of the club?
To a degree.
What can you tell us about Gala YM? Because downstairs there's a couple of really nice cabinets. You've got Duncan Patterson's memorabilia there, and you've got Arthur Brown, and you've got Chris Patterson's as well. All good stuff.
Yeah, the YM has a very, very rich history. Formed in 1928, and at its peak in the 80s and early 90s, was running 3 teams. At the same time, Gala Star was running 3 teams, and there was Gala Forest as well. And Gala themselves had 2 teams, so it just shows the decline in numbers, that we're now sitting with ourselves with 1 team and Gala essentially with 1 team as well.
At the weekend, lots of good rugby being played, probably not quite as successful as the week before, it has to be said, but Dale, we certainly had some good results, and let's start with some very good news with the Southern Knights going to the top of the table with a convincing win over Boroughmuir.
Yeah, again picking up a good win, and it sets up a really good game against Watsonians this weekend. Top of the table clash between them pairs, so it's they've certainly found their form again after that little bump in the road when they got defeated a few games ago. So the Southern Knights are certainly putting down a marker, and certainly at this stage of the season they've got, I think, maybe 4 games left. So really big game this weekend for Watsonians, but again, wins breed confidence, and the Southern Knights will be wanting to push on again.
Now, on Friday, I went along to a volunteer park in Hawick and had a thoroughly enjoyable time watching the youngsters, Gala Red Triangle, playing the Hawick Youth Under-16 team. And already there's potentially some great players amongst both sides.
Yeah, again, it's just great to see the coverage. Obviously, you were down on Friday, and it's just good to be able to, get access to that. It's not available to everybody to go and watch an under, any age grade game on a Friday night. So it's great to see that, these youngsters are getting that sort of exposure on a regular basis in the Borders. And I just kind of always think about, when I was watching that footage, thinking in years from now, is one of those players going to be, maybe playing semi-pro, professional rugby, national rugby, and then you're digging through your archives and putting this footage out. So it's a great platform for people in the Borders to really put their name on the map and, try and, if they want to make a career out of it, to certainly start then. And
hopefully it will encourage people to obviously take part at a young level, knowing that they are getting some coverage here.
I think we were speaking downstairs between Rhuary and Jamie, and we were just speaking about making rugby accessible, and how I'm really impressed with the way Gala YM as a club have the playing numbers that they do. They were speaking about, and I don't think it's just making it accessible to young players, it's making it accessible to people who just want to play rugby with their friends, or people who want to play competitive rugby. It's making sure that we're advertising a great platform for people in the Borders to go, look, the clubs are welcoming, they're nurturing environments, they teach you a lot about culture, and a lot of good contacts made as well. But certainly when you're young and you're coming through these age grade teams, it helps you develop as a person, and certainly as a career as well. If you want to be a successful rugby player, all the clubs are dying and crying out for these players to just rock up with a set of boots and crack on.
Well, into the Premiership, and Selkirk, their start to the season was delayed 7 days because obviously the Jed Forest game in the first day of the season was called off because of COVID in the camp. But of course they got off to a great start, beating Musselburgh, who had beaten GHA, who beat Hawick at the weekend. But a really good result for them, 32 points to 21.
Yeah, I think again it's still quite difficult to see where the lie of the land is in all the leagues, and from right top down to the bottom leagues that we've got in the tier system. But it's a great win for Selkirk. Obviously, a bit disappointed in the way that their game was called off. They're maybe a little bit, unsure as to what level they're going to play at. But from the footage that was there, really, really good win against Musselburgh. They're really well drilled. Musselburgh are always a big, dominant team. They play good rugby as well. Really kind of stern team. So for Selkirk to get their first win was really good. Callum Anderson as well. I said he was going to play 10. I think he's going to be a player to really watch out for this season. I think he's really developed from being that kind of young, impressionable 10 to be now. He certainly looks like he's filled out and he looks like a rugby player. I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops this season.
And that was some try he got, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know, that's kind of what I mean. I was kind of glad to see that he got a run out at 10. I feel really sorry for Aaron McComb, who's obviously out injured, but it does give these players this opportunity, and that's what club rugby is about. You want to get your best players out in the park, so when Aaron comes back, he'll find his way in that team. He might have to move position, Callum might have to move position as well, but it's just great to see players like that getting a good run and showing what they can do, and he certainly did that on Saturday.
So Hawick lost 31-30 at GHA. Always difficult to go to Braidholme and get a result anyway, but it's one that Matty Douglas said slipped away from them. They go back to Mansfield Park with a losing bonus and a try bonus as well, but could have been a lot more.
It could have been a lot more. Obviously, to just win it, to lose a narrow game like that is disappointing, especially in a league season. And especially at the start, because it does play doubts in your mind as to where you're eventually trying to go in a league campaign, and when you've got a points tally or fixtures that you're targeting, when something's so close to win and it slips out of your grasp, then it is difficult to take. But to look at it positively, as you've said, they've went away with 2 points, which is a return of something. To come back with nothing's a difficult thing, especially after such a good win at the start, but to get 2 points, it keeps them, it doesn't make anybody go too far away from them. It keeps them in touch and distance of the big teams who are perhaps going to be pushing for that, which at the moment we really don't know who it's going to be, because again fixtures and results were up in the air this week. But Hawick will be disappointed to not pick up the win after their win the week before. And
so will Jed Forest, of course, who were missing a lot of players as well. 45-19 at Rayburn Place against Edinburgh Accies. Work to do.
Yeah, definitely work to do. I think I've always been very impressed with Jed over the last few years. I think they've had a core of players that have came through and really matured and nurtured at the same time, which has given them a good nucleus of a team. However, with saying that, there are a couple of players, when you take a couple of players out, they do have weak spots. So it's having that squad depth in a league campaign, and when you do lose a few players for injury, COVID, work commitments, it's difficult, and especially going to Edinburgh Accies for their first game of the season, they would be all guns blazing and really want to put in a performance. So yeah, Jed will be disappointed, but every confidence when they get back to Riverside Park that they'll be putting in performances, and that's not from a Borders standpoint. It's just when they're at home, they are usually a different beast, and if they can get a strong squad, they can put up a good fight with any team in the league.
Now Melrose going very well, a big win at Boroughmuir in National League 1, 36 points to nil, and the feeling I get is they were disappointed with their performance. Yeah,
and I think that's perhaps something that's just been Melrose's attitude over the last few years. They do strive to be the best, I think. A lot of other teams might turn their nose up at that a little bit, and as an ex-Peebles player, I potentially would as well when I was playing. But with watching them over the last few years, they approach their rugby very seriously, and they're very disciplined and directed when they play. So even though on anybody's book that's a great win, but they'll still look for areas to develop on and improve, and I think that's great as a team culture, self-discipline as well, to make sure that you don't always just kind of ride the coattails of good wins. You've got to still work hard and make sure it wasn't just a flash in the pan. So it's something that's just been, it's to be expected of Melrose. And I don't mean that certainly in a bad way. That sounds like I'm being quite snooty, but I've always been very impressed with Melrose and their attitude to rugby.
And fair play to Kelso as well, unbeaten as well. They came off the back of the Cartho away win, and they got a very good win against Highland, 43 points to 3. Top of the table, unbeaten, good start.
Yeah, good start after 2 games. Again, I think it's shown the players that they've recruited have worked for them so far. Obviously, the influence of Bruce and Billy McNeil in that team has probably been good in the, sterned up their back row, certainly. Andy Tate as well, still driving at 9. Really good team. Great, that's a great result. Highland over the last few years have been a very, very difficult team. Very consistent over the last few years as well. I know that Ian Chisholm was up there doing a lot of good work as a development officer. He's obviously now down a bit more local. But again, it's getting a win of that size is a good start for Kelso, and they'll be wanting to keep pushing on because we've said it's just going to winning becomes a habit, and Kelso will be wanting to try and continue that.
Gala went to Ayr, Millbrae, again very tough place to go, but they were doing very well at half time, 17 points all, and then it all went horribly wrong, 37 points to 20.
Yeah, another prediction that I said that Gala would win. I think I must have had my Borders glasses on that day, but it's a difficult place to play. Millbrae, it's especially, it's not the Ayr that we have known over the last few years. It's got a slightly different slant on it, but it's going to take a bit of time for us to get used to where they sit in the league, and I think Gala have certainly got an idea of where they sit now, because obviously getting that, it's quite a heavy defeat in terms of the second half result. Obviously they were in the fight in the first half, but second half pulled away. But Gala have been very, very impressive so far. They've got a lot of good young players coming through, a couple of good results early on with the Border League win, first win of the season as well, so they'll be wanting to try and put a few wrongs right this weekend, and certainly try and get back in the hunt, because it's going to take a few weeks, as we've said, for the league to pan out, but Ayr might be one of those teams that will be in the mix come the end.
And what a time for Gala to rebound against Kelso, unbeaten, and of course at a place that Kelso don't usually get good results at, Netherdale.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that game. It's going to be the first one I'll actually get to view live this season, which makes me feel like I actually do take part in Borders Rugby. But it's I'm looking forward to seeing it. I do like a Borders derby. I've done a few down at Poinder. I've also done a few at Netherdale over the last few years, and they're, Borders derbies have a bit of a different slant on it. It's got a certain different mix. It's not always one for the kind of the neutral, but there's a lot of heart and a lot of fight in all these games. And even though there's some players moving clubs and whatnot, they've moved from border clubs. They know what it's all about, and Gala at home will certainly be wanting to put that unbeaten run from Kelso, to one side and make sure that they put themselves back in the mix.
We'll have a look at that in more detail a bit later on in the programme, but National 2 and 3, good wins. Peebles have won at last, and that was the game I was at against Stuart Melville, and Berwick got a home win against Greenock Wanderers. As Colin Young, the head coach, said, it wasn't a pretty game, it was very different to the Murrayfield experience, but a win is a win so early on in the season.
Yeah, Peebles, again, we said last week they were targeting the first 2 games to try and put a marker down. Very unlucky against Kirkcaldy to lose in the dying minutes, and then against Stu Mel, a very hard team to play against, and I think almost at the end they could have almost thrown the game away, but they had a kind of few as we said, they were struggling for front row, and Rhuary Milne was one of the players that had to come into that squad and put in a shift the last few minutes. And I believe it was a Neil Hogarth turnover right on 5 metre lines that they gave them a penalty to kind of kick the touch to win the game. So a good home win for Peebles, and they'll be wanting to push on. And same with Berwick. Looking at the scoreline, it obviously wasn't the most open, expansive game of rugby, but Berwick again will be just happy to get that win on the board and continue on their league campaign.
Into the East League 1, Duns win first up, 25-10 to Forrester, and Forrester are a good team, so that's a good result for Duns. East League 2, Langham winning again, 24-19 against Christophin. Lindeen losing just by a point at Pennycook, so that makes the Pennycook match against Langham very interesting this weekend. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Gala YM losing to Lismore in East League 3. Urston obviously didn't have a game. Have a look at the semi-juniors here. Peebles Colts, Hoyk Youth and Earlston High Melrose Wasps. Big mouthful there. All one away. And Selkirk Youth went down at home to Tynedale. And again, leaking over 30 points, which they'll be concerned about. It gives us a clearer picture, though, of what's happening there in the semi-junior league. Yeah,
definitely. I think, obviously, unbeaten at the top, we've got Hoyk and Peebles who are sitting on top, unbeaten at the moment.
Well, more on that later. We must, of course, mention Kelso Ladies. They played on Sunday, finally got onto the pitch, which was the first priority. They went down to a very strong Broughton side, but smiles on the faces afterwards, a couple of tries scored as well, and that will really encourage them at this new level.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's got, as we've said before, it's making sure that they're playing rugby. It's making sure they're out in the park, and you could hear when you spoke to Kelly Mitchell about how proud she was that the fact they're out on the park, they're out playing rugby, and they've almost got they've got the wheels turning now that they can try and kick on in the season, and it's just great to have an avenue for female rugby. We spoke about it for juniors, we spoke about it for social players, we spoke about it for players who want to play at the highest level. And Kelso Ladies getting off with that first game, it gives us another avenue to make that available for people to play rugby.
And we'll be down this Sunday filming them on their first home match at Poynter Park. Again, more on that later, and more from here later as well, because we're going to bring you an interview now that I did recently with a young man who plays for Gala Wanderers, and he also referees. He's only 16 years old. His name is Doddie Turner. You're actually currently the youngest referee in the Borders Rugby Referee Society. So at 16 years old, you actually joined when you were 15, but how did you get into refereeing?
Well, I've started playing with the YM and training with them, and just coming down to matches and getting involved with running touch, and then I got involved with the Gala Mini Maroons and refereeing their games. So
why refereeing for you?
It's just the way my brain works. I like things to be structured and ordered, and I just thought this would be the perfect thing for me.
But of course, a lot of people turn to refereeing after a rugby career. You're actually running the two side by side. How difficult is that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I had the opportunity to play tomorrow, but I've been selected to referee at Gala, so ended up choosing that over it. But
right. Yeah. So which do you prefer out of the two?
I prefer playing rugby when it's 15s, but 7s really isn't my thing.
How is the clash going to work itself out then? Because obviously playing with Gala YM, etc., you'll be quite busy, I'd imagine, on the field.
Yeah, just trying to do midweek matches with the refereeing, and then Sunday mornings and stuff. So trying to play and referee at different times.
So what's the best bit about refereeing?
I just think the control and just being able to make sure that the game's flowing smoothly and making sure everyone has a good time whilst playing.
Do the players give you some stick?
I've had some players be annoyed with my refereeing, but they've got to put up with it at the end of the day. So
you obviously got a great career ahead of you. Is it going to be sort of playing though, or is it going to be refereeing ultimately?
I think it will be refereeing ultimately. I know I'm not the best player, but hopefully moving into refereeing in the future I'll keep getting better and better.
It's a very kind of difficult thing to actually do. There's a lot of people who just wouldn't go into refereeing for obvious reasons. They haven't got a thick enough skin. But presumably you've got to have a thick skin to do this sort of work.
Yeah, you're always going to get people having a go at you when you're reffing, but ultimately it's your decision and they've got to put up with that. And
you can put them back 10 yards.
Yeah.
So a young man with a very bright future indeed, that's Doddie Turner. And his mother, Susan, of course, Rhuary, works at the club as well.
Yes, she's been the medic for the past couple of years, helped us out. Unfortunately, she wasn't with us on Saturday when we had the injuries, when we could have
always
really
the way, isn't it?
Always the way. But yeah, Susan and Doddie have been part of the YM for the last couple of years, and great supporters of us.
Now, of course, the elephant in the room question is there's a big club down the road called Gala. You play on their back pitches. How difficult is it for you as a team to get people to play for Gala YM rather than play for Gala or Gala A?
Gala YM, the way that Gala YM play, it's more your amateur rugby or social rugby. So that's the kind of the group that we incorporate and accommodate. So there's a lot of players that have the potential to play for Gala, but they choose that they don't want to play at that level. And I'd say that's the kind of family that the YM try and build, is boys that just want to go out and play rugby on the Saturday, but have a good strategic competitive game on the Saturday, as well as the social side at the back of that.
And how ambitious is the club?
This season, the way that we've looked at it is, after COVID, is we want to be at the top of this league, and that's our focus, is to get the top there and see where we go from there, because we know that a lot of teams will be a lot different from what they were in pre-COVID, so we don't know what we're expecting. But going forward, once we get this season under wraps, we'll have a clearer picture of where we stand with the teams that we're playing against, and see if we get to the top, if we can progress, and if we progress, what it's like in that league.
Does it niggle the club a little bit that you're in East League 3, not East League 2 or 1?
It does a little bit at times. Obviously, you do want to be at higher levels, but again, the type of players that we get in, not all of them are wanting to play at that top level. They're not wanting the games where you're having to go and train and eat rugby and sleep rugby every single day. So if we don't end up getting to the top leagues, then that's fair enough, and we will keep playing for the boys that we've got.
It's a very precarious position, isn't it, for all the East League clubs, the Caledonia regions as well. At the moment, we've seen what's happened to Hoyt Harlequins, who are a couple of divisions above you. We've seen clubs drop out, clubs not able to fulfil fixtures and things like that. How are things with regards to Gala YM at the moment? Because obviously this is in the back of the mind.
Yeah, we're strong at the moment. We sit with 30 regularly training players, and as we've touched on, they're not always available because of either work commitments, in some cases cricket, golf, whatever, and that's the reason that they're playing with the YM at our level, because they don't have the same demands that you might get in the national leagues. We're confident going forward. We've managed to recruit a fair number of players over the last 4 years. Season ending 2017, 2018, we had a lot of retirements. There was a lot of wheel Kent faces that decided to step down, and we've managed to replace a lot of these guys. The average age of our squad is sitting at 27, which, considering the top age, that's not a bad average, and it's continuing to build. We have a fairly good presence, things like social media, websites and things like we're doing tonight, and that seems to be what drives people towards us. They know that we're providing a level of rugby that sits between the social non-league play around things that you can sometimes see in Edinburgh and the national leagues, which is much more of a commitment. It's still a competitive rugby, but without the need for such a huge commitment. Now,
you mentioned earlier 1928 is when it was formed. Now, if I've done my maths right, that's something like 93 years ago, isn't it? So you'll definitely be wanting to keep that club moving up and obviously going through and getting to your 100th anniversary.
Yes, indeed. We just see no reason why not. We're in a good position financially. We sit with our own club rooms, good numbers both of committee and players, so there's absolutely no reason why not.
Obviously, looking back at that 93 years, there have been a few highlights. Yeah,
the club's been very lucky to have a number of players that have came through, ended up playing international rugby, with the likes of Hovis Brown and Mike Dodds and others, and through the 80s and 90s, a number of league wins and an awful lot of sevens wins.
Now, Dale, it's very, very important to have these sort of clubs catering for the youngsters who want to start out in their career and a stepping stone, effectively, to bigger things, or just playing social rugby.
Rhuary was on about a few of his ex-schoolmates came back and played, and he's only 26 years old. So that's it, there's a welcome back in, and I think we sometimes get wrapped up in the fact that it's social rugby, and you always think about the game. You think about the level of the game, and that it's maybe not as high a standard as we're used to seeing on the TV. But the game's 80 minutes long. It's only a fraction of what else goes on in a club. You get welcomed into a club, and you've got friends down there. You can have a beer. You can sit and watch the sport on TV. You can go to events. You can go to internationals and tours and stuff like that. It's a very small. The rugby is a very small part of it. Being in a club, the community is the big part, and having people will find their level of rugby. That happens in the top tier of rugby as well. But it's really important that everybody gets access to that. And if you're not the best rugby player in the world, you still find a home in a rugby club somewhere, so you don't miss out on the tours. Because the stories I've, from my playing career, most of them are based around probably the night out after or being on tour. And there's a lot of chat still about some games and whatnot. But the social and the friends that you've met and the people that you've met along the way is a huge part of that. And the rugby, you have to just find a level that you're comfortable with, because the rest comes along with that as well. So I was really kind of inspired to hear that they've got 30 odd boys training at Gala YM, which is sometimes, and no disrespect to the guys beside it, sometimes rugby players might look down and think, I want to try and play for Gala because they're playing higher, but you might not have as much fun and enjoyment out of it, and you need to make sure that you're getting as much for yourself as you're giving back to the club as well. So no, it's great. It's a vital part of rugby. It is a vital part.
And you mentioned the rugby tours, and there's not enough of that these days, is there?
Not at all. So if there's any club going on tour, I'll take an invite. I'll get them in. No, definitely. I think it's all the social stuff. I remember being a mini and middies, and you were going to internationals, and you were getting immersed in the top level of rugby, and that's inspiring you. But then after that, when you start growing up, you start learning a little bit more about people and life and how you're going to live. Tours play a big part of that, and making sure that you can go in a different place and you can work as a team, you can behave, you can have fun, and the tours are a really important part of a club. And I think there's probably there's something that's another part which is perhaps being lost a little bit, but it's making sure that you've got access to that. And I'm happy he's going on tour.
Well, before COVID broke us, we were heading to Newcastle for a few nights.
Oh, I'll take that. That's fine.
COVID brought us closer and closer to the clubrooms.
Right, okay.
Eventually,
and here we are.
Rhuary, let's turn back to you again, because we do have this big match at the weekend from your perspective. It's the local derby. It's your only local derby in East League 3, so it happens a couple of times a year. This one is at the Hoch at Earlston, and we're hoping to get a camera down for that one as well, because I remember filming the Juicing Cup here. Is it still the Juicing Cup, in fact?
It is still the Juicing Cup.
And who holds it at the moment?
It is us.
It's us.
I believe.
Us, yes.
Yeah. Just check the cabinet downstairs. If it's there, it's you.
Yeah.
So, but it's great, isn't it? I mean, Earlston against Gala YM, that's the one that your guys will certainly be getting up for, and the Earlston boys too.
Most certainly. It's one of the big games of our season that we look at, as you say, because it is a local derby. It's just over the hill. A lot of boys are really up for it.
Well, we certainly look forward to that game anyway. Earlston against Gala YM, one of 3 border derbies this weekend. But Dale, let's take a look at the weekend then, and we start with a huge match at the Green Yards tomorrow night. Top of the table clash between Southern Knights and Watsonians, and Southern Knights wanting revenge for the loss at Marside.
Yeah, I think they'll certainly be wanting to try and put down a marker as the season starts entering the real business end. And there's almost little battles, from a Borders point amongst the game. You've got Nicky Walker, who's a coach at Watsonians. You've also got Ross Graham up there playing for Watsonians as well. Amongst another few players in there as well. So I think young Thomas Jeffrey's up there at Watsonians as well. So ex Peebles and Jed prop. So they've got a lot of battles amongst that. But I think the Super Six is really starting to find its place in my view. I think it's really it's got extensive coverage over the weekend, and it's given people that platform. We've spoke about the levels of rugby throughout this evening, and that's certainly one of the stepping stones up to professional and national rugby, and it's really starting to bed in our kind of calendar.
It's a mouth-watering weekend, because on Saturday we have Premiership derby, Hawick against Selkirk. We're all looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the one at Mansfield. Now, somebody will probably tell me I'm wrong, but I'm sure it was a draw when I was there, and it was one of the best performances that I'd seen of the newer kind of look of Selkirk, with the younger guys coming through. They were playing real expansive rugby, getting the ball out wide, and they're really frustrating Hawick. But that's going to be a really interesting game. Hawick have a good pack. They've got a lot of good runners. Jay Linton, Matty Carrier are good runners with ball in hand. Sean Muir, and obviously in the back line they've got pace with Logan, Gordon Woolley. Players like that can really, Mully Bannerman as well is getting a good bit of game time for Hawick, looking at the team sheets. So that's going to be a really interesting game, a really, really good game that I'll be keeping an eye out for the result, because the game that I'd seen before, especially in dry conditions, was a really entertaining one, and I'm sure they're going to be the spectators are going to be spoilt again this weekend as they kind of clash.
Jed Forrest against Glasgow Hawks. We're looking for a backlash.
Yeah, we've said Jed are good down at Riverside Park, and if they can kind of keep people fit and get a more a squad which they're happier with, or probably on paper that the general punter like myself would be happier with, they'll certainly put up a fight, and they'll be wanting to try and get that win because they're a very, very proud town, a very proud club. So they'll be wanting to try and make amends for that heavy defeat last week and get a win against Glasgow Hawks. And
then it gets even better. National one we go into, and Gala at home to Kelso. Traditionally, Gala always win at home against Kelso. But this is a different Kelso, you feel, this season.
Yeah, I think they've recruited well, brought in a lot of good players with good experience. We've spoke about them before. So it's going to be a kind of good game, especially because Gala are off the back of a loss. So it's interesting from a spectator's point of view, thinking what kind of Gala are going to turn up. Are they going to be, a little bit, is their confidence going to dip slightly after that loss away to Ayr? But they'll certainly want to try and come out and make amends. And Kelso at the moment undefeated, so there's a lot riding on this, and it could be one of those games that we look back at the end of the season and think, what if Kelso had picked up that win at Netherdale, or what if Gala had just beaten Kelso in that tight game? So it's going to be really interesting, and really looking forward to watching that one because I'll be down there.
And Melrose, of course, against Dundee High.
Yeah, Melrose off the back of a good win. There's really not a lot to say apart from the fact that they weren't happy with a heavy win against Boroughmuir, so they'll be wanting to try and improve on those and probably get an even bigger win. So they're got a bit of form going into this. Melrose are certainly looking strong, and they're very, very disciplined, and they've got their eye on the prize. And now it seems if they're not happy with the big win against Boroughmuir, so Dundee are going to be in for a bit of a battle.
International 2, Peebles, who go away to Preston Lodge, and Berwick also on the road at Murrayfield Wanderers. East League 1, Duns against Ross High. East League 2, Lindeen against Trinity Academicals, and those two have had some battles in the past as well. Also in East League 2, as we mentioned earlier, Pennycook against Langham, and in East League 3, of course, it's Ulster against Gala YM, which we've talked about earlier on in the programme. So let's have a look at the semi-junior Border League. It's all cross-border again. Hoyk Youth versus Duns Colts is off tomorrow night. It was to be under the lights at Volunteer Park, but Duns, unfortunately, can't raise a team for that one. On Saturday, though, Earlston High Melrose Wasps are at home to Alnwick Colts. Jed Thistle playing host to Carlisle Colts. Kelso Quins welcome Morpeth Colts, and Gala Wanderers are away at Tynedale. Now the East Reserve League 1, Hoyk Forth against Selkirk A, happening at the same time as the big boys, the big Hoyk and Selkirk teams at Mansfield Park. This one's at Mansfield Hock, both kicking off at 3 o'clock. Jed Forest A are at home to Stuart's Melville. In East 2, it's Gala A against Kelso Sharks, as they call their A team now. That's been switched to Friday night, tomorrow night at 7:30, and Melrose Storm will play Preston Lodge, Peebles Reds, Edinburgh Accies B. Finally on Sunday, again we'll be there at Poynter Park for the Kelso ladies' first home match ever in a national competition, and they take on Ayr, who have had an indifferent start to the season, so that could be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be a big moment and a big occasion for them to get that first home game, at their new level, and I'm sure they'll be fired up for it and want to get that first win. And I've not followed Ayr's progress too much in the women's league, so if you're saying that they've been quite indifferent, that's probably a good fixture to get, because they'll certainly be pumped up, and that gives you kind of that little yard of pace, and it gives you that little bit more accuracy when you're playing the game, because you're a little bit more focused and a little bit more G'd up. So yeah, good luck to them on Sunday.
So a feast of rugby ahead, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. We can't wait. There's some real tasty fixtures there. We'd like to say thanks to Gala YM and Jamie and Rhuary, of course, as well, for hosting us today. Next week, we're going to be at Philip Hawk at Selkirk for the first time this season. But for now, thanks much indeed for watching, and bye for now.